We continue to bring you stories about Black History Month, and you might not think of Black history when it comes to tipping, but its roots can be traced back to the days of slavery. Saru Jayaraman is the president of One Fair Wage. That's an organization that looks to raise wages and improve working conditions. Thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So you say tipping is inherently racist. Why is that?
Well, tipping is actually a reflection of the way that our implicit biases play out when we actually interact with service workers. But the roots of these workers relying on our biased impressions really does date back to slavery. So, the tipping originated in feudal Europe as an extra or bonus that aristocrats could give serfs and vassals, but always on top of a wage. At emancipation of slavery, the hospitality industry wanted the ability to hire Black people and continue not to pay them anything, as happened during slavery. And so they mutated tipping at that time from being an extra or bonus on top of a wage to becoming the wage itself, basically creating a sub-minimum wage for tipped workers in the United States that was made law in 1938. So we went from a $0 wage in 1938 all the way up to the current federal minimum wage for tipped workers in the U.S., which is $2.13 an hour. And 43 states in the U.S. persist with this legacy of slavery, forcing a largely female, disproportionately women of color workforce to rely exclusively on tips, or almost exclusively on tips. When you have wages as low as $2 and $3 and $4, you rely mostly on tips. And the data shows now irrefutably that when you rely on tips exclusively, you are subject to the biases of customers. And unfortunately, that means that women of color earn on average $5 an hour less than white male counterparts. The data shows that servers of color always earn less in tips than white workers, even when they provide what's called perfect service. It also shows that this largely female workforce is subjected to the highest rates of sexual harassment of any industry. So we know that not only are the roots of how tipping has mutated in the United States from being an extra or bonus on top of a wage to becoming the wage itself, not only is that rooted in slavery, but the persistent practice of forcing a mostly female population to rely on those tips subjects them to racial discrimination as well.
But when we talk about the disparity in pay between men and women, that is across the board in this country. I mean, that isn't unique to tipping, right?
It's not. What's unique to tipping is that there's actually a legalized form of gender discrimination in the restaurant industry, whereas in most industries, you might have two positions that are not supposed to be paid differently, but they might be paid differently. And then there's the opportunity to sue if there's the same credentials, same position. In this case, you've got a largely male population of workers working in the kitchen or in management earning a full minimum wage, and a largely female population of tipped workers earning that ridiculously low sub-minimum wage of $2 or $3. So basically you're subjecting women in the restaurant largely to the sub-minimum wage and having to rely on tips, whereas the mostly male population is not relying on tips. They're either management or in the kitchen. And it's that reliance on tips that creates both the subjection to sexual harassment and to racial discrimination. Because there are men, of course, in the front of the house earning tips. They are the minority. They're about a third of the industry of all tipped workers, but white men always earn more in tips, even when the woman of color or the person of color provides better service. That is what the data is showing.
So what's the solution? Because tipping is a major part of American culture in the service industry. Do we just do away with tips?
So what we're actually fighting for is what many states are already doing. So California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Minnesota, Montana, and Alaska all require all workers, including tipped workers, to be paid a full minimum wage with tips on top. What does that do? That reduces workers' dependence on tips as a source of income. So workers get tips, of course. In fact, tips are higher in those 7 states, but they're not the sole or primary source of income. They're on top of a wage that the employer pays, like every other industry. And so in those states, you see sexual harassment goes way down, racial disparities go way down, because again, you have a workforce that's paid by their employer, not entirely subject to the whims and biases of customers. Whereas in 43 states in the US, including blue states like New York and DC and Chicago, you have a population of workers, mostly women, that is just entirely reliant on the biases of customers. If they were paid a full wage, they wouldn't be as reliant or vulnerable to those biases.
All right. Well, thank you for the insight. It is a very interesting history not a lot of people know about. We appreciate you breaking it down for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.